episode of We Only Look Thin Since Sliced Bread. I am Katherine Weigel. I am one of your hosts. I've lost 140 pounds, and with me today is...
Donald Weigel, and I have lost about 100 pounds. And yes, we have been recording this show since the early 1920s, and as we learned on the last episode, sliced bread was invented in 1928, so this is the best episode since then.
The best episode. Wow, that's a long time.
Those early 1920s episodes are not our best work. Not our best work, yeah.
It was a complicated time.
I think they're still
Dragons
solid.
were flying in the air.
We were too busy trying to do 23 Skidoo and whatever they did in the Roaring
the
20s.
Charlestons.
We were too busy roaring with Charlestons in the 20s, yes, to really focus on weight loss and fitness.
But this is part 2 of 2 parts of 1 episode of 2 parts of We Only Look Thin.
Yes.
As I just said. In the last episode, I don't know, dude. They're not all winners. I was too busy doing the Charleston in my brain.
Yes, as were we all.
But in the last episode, we talked about sort of our ideal selves ruining our actual lives and how we overthink and how we try to hold ourselves to these ideals of weight loss instead of the practical side of life.
Yeah, and how the pursuit of perfection can oftentimes lead to procrastination. That's a lot of P's in there.
It sure is.
But it really is a matter of this getting over this all or nothing mindset that we have. And I did it for years and years and years. The idea that if I couldn't be perfect, that I would just do nothing instead.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Mission accomplished. Yes, I did nothing until I got diabetes.
Well, and like we said, I was 41 when I started this last time journey venture. And I had all of these notions about this perfect weight loss plan I had to do, or if I couldn't do it exactly like this, then I wasn't going to do it at all. And it just got me in this zigzag of losing all the weight and then gaining most of it back for 20 some years. And in this time, we've realized that flexibility and adaptability, maybe those are the same thing. I don't even know. I like having 2 things to talk about.
Right.
So it makes it sound more impactful.
Yeah. And they both end with ability. So they're really different.
But I realized this time that I had to be open to the idea that life wasn't going to hand me the perfect circumstances for weight loss. And seeing it that way has made it much easier to stick to a plan because I realize that my plan is adaptable.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be all mason jar salads and perfection. Sometimes it can be mason jar salads. Sometimes it can be a single baby carrot, which we will talk about later on in the episode.
Yeah. And I think I learned a valuable lesson over the last, 5-6 years. And I suppose over my whole life, which is that I need to have a backup plan to my main plan and a backup plan to my backup plan.
Exactly.
And, it's sort of when things are easy, when life throws me a nice, pocket where I'm not super busy and I have all the time, I can do all the things that my ideal self would do. But then there are times when I get busier, and then there are times when I get busier than that, and I need to have a plan in place to cover myself for all of those occasions so that I'm not just throwing up my hands and going like, well, I guess I have to just eat all the fast food now.
Right. So I know in the last episode, we sort of joked about I need something that takes no time to cook, that's non-GMO, that's healthy, that's low calorie, that doesn't spoil immediately, that my family's going to love, that I can eat at work on the fly, that doesn't have to be heated up, but it's also super fresh and crunchy.
Right.
And it has to, fit all of these ideals, almost like, not that profiles on websites were a thing when we were kids, but these dating profiles that have these perfect, statistics on people that they have to match up perfectly.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to swipe left and right on this episode. Of I don't know what swiping is. But
I always forget which one's the good one. I haven't I haven't been on any swiping websites for my entire life.
Anything.
Yeah.
So we still see people, including ourselves at times, who sort of come in with crossed arms saying, I can't lose weight because I have a limited diet. I can't lose weight because I work too much. I can't lose weight because my family loves delicious, wholesome, homemade meals.
Right.
And a lot of times our ideals are at cross purposes with our actual health goals. And back in the day, the days of yore, the days where dinosaurs and dragons roam the earth with Calvin Coolidge and sliced bread.
If you don't know what we're talking about, listen to the last episode.
Too bad, so sad.
Yeah.
But we have all of these, all of these circumstances need to be met before I can lose weight. It will just get us where it got Donald Weigel, which is diabetes land.
Exactly.
And it's fun and games in your 20s when it's about vanity and it's about sort of, I just want to look good for this wedding. But finally, when we realize that our actual lives are at stake, sorry to get down before we get back up again.
Wow.
When our actual lives are on the stake, we realize that we can advocate for our health goals in any circumstance. So in this episode, last time we talked about sort of the big mindset sort of things. And in this, we were practical talking about dragons. And in this episode, we're going to talk about sort of the on the ground tactics we can take when really considering what we're ready for in terms of our eating goals and the way we prepare food, the way we think about food. It is, we sort of mentioned it on the last episode, that sort of evolution of man from Neanderthal all the way up to standing upright, hunched over our telephones, our smartphones sort of thing. And we can think about that in terms of where we are on the spectrum for the kinds of food we eat, and the health goals that we have. And it's not going to be the same every single day. If you think that you're going to go from I'm doing nothing with my health goals to absolute perfection for the rest of your life, we're setting ourselves up for failure.
Absolutely. And before we get deeper into it, I just want to say I'm going to do my best to concentrate, but now all I can imagine is Calvin Coolidge riding a dinosaur. But I mentioned at the top of the show having a ideal plan, sort of a middle road plan, and a emergency plan. And when you're coming up with your plan for these three things, one of the things to consider is variety versus predictability. And you have to ask yourself, which one of those things means more to you? Is it better for you to go with what you know, which takes less energy? Or are you the kind of person who just never seems to know what they're going to feel like eating and you want to be in the moment? And if you're the first kind of person who likes the predictability, that sort of lines itself up for being easy. You buy those foods, you have them ready, you know what you're going to eat all the time. If you can't do that, if you're just somebody who wants to eat on the fly, then you have to plan a lot more and you have to have those foods available so that you're not just throwing up your hands and going with whatever.
Well, and for sure, and part of that, Donald basically eats the same thing for breakfast and lunch and snacks, and then maybe has a little bit of variety for dinner. His spice of life is spices, not variety of foods, but it makes his plan predictable because he's not having to sort of decide. And there are people out there in audience land, including myself, sometimes like, well, I don't know what I want to eat. Like I consider myself, sort of like more of a European who goes to the market every day. And
I'm a free spirit, man. But I think, I'm a leaf blowing with the wind, man.
But I think that is sort of troublesome at times because it's at cross purposes with what we say our end goal is. And a lot of times something that I say in Wolt Place, WLT Place, We Only Look Thin Place is, how is that serving you? How is that fly by the seat of your pants? I don't know what I'm going to want today. I just go with where my body takes me. My body takes me to, the extra double size portion menu on anything. That's where I go on a whim. And sometimes it's easier to just have that predictable, stable choice to go back to than all of that, kind of like, oh, well, I get my kicks from, never eating the same thing twice. There was a meal plan that I saw recently that was like, you won't repeat a meal for 30 days. That stressed me out so much. Like, how am I going to have enough ingredients to have 30 unique meals? That is not where I get my kicks. I like a little bit of predictability.
Well, and I think too, not to belabor this point, but I think that a lot of times, I know I did it. I would use that sort of thing as an excuse just to set myself up.
I don't know what they're going to serve. I don't know what they're going to have at craft service.
Buy the indulgent fast food meal or whatever.
Yeah,
it's like, I don't know what I'm going to, I can't possibly, predict, what I'm going to want at that time. So, and then I would just have no choice in air quotes except to eat the indulgent food.
Exactly. I purposely just spoke over you at the same time. I know sometimes people are like, oh, well, they need to plan out what they're going to talk. In those musicals where they have two dialogues going on at once? That was kind of what I was going for. I was going for one of those moments. So.
I forget what that's called, but anyway. Someone will write us and let us know.
I did it on purpose. So just letting you know, I wasn't trying to be rude. So the next thing, speaking of things that happen, the next thing that kind of goes into that variety predictability thing is decision fatigue.
Yeah.
Too many choices lead to indecision, which leads to takeout, fast food, or grazing. We do that all or nothing. Either it's 100% homemade or I'm getting takeout. It's either, that what I grew up with, which like the meat, starch, vegetable, like my grandmother used to do, or it's fast food revenge eating. It's sort of, if I can't hit that ideal, then I'm not going to do anything at all. And I think people including me, fall into this. I've got to have this perfect meal for our daughter. I've got to, be this ideal mom. And sometimes that ideal just doesn't work. And because of that, it leads me to just, well, if I don't have time to do that, I'm going to do nothing, which is just takeout.
And hey, maybe it's most of the time that ideal doesn't work if we're being honest with ourselves. And again, it's another one of these things where we can use that as an excuse to intentionally sabotage ourselves. Another thing to think about is your energy expenditure or effort. There are times when I feel like I could, prep all of the food in the world, and I'm like, I'm going to spend half of my Saturday like making all of this great stuff that I'm going to eat for the week. But really, most of the time, I just cannot be bothered. So ask yourself, what is your current energy level? Is it sustainable? Is it something that's going to last forever? Like Catherine's used this example a few times. She did this thing where she was making these pre-jarred salads, and that lasted like 2 or 3 weeks. And then suddenly it was like, I can't do this even
And so
one
I
more
didn't
minute.
do anything. But I think that that's a big thing. And, all of this is dependent on your circumstances. If you're in a really stressful time, your level of ability to home prep things can change. And I used to think it was either I have to do it 100% or I'm not going to do anything at all.
And we did an episode called Spoon Man, which was about spoon theory, and that, people only have a certain amount of energy. And sometimes, some days you have more than others. And when you do, you can take advantage of those. But really, you have to have a backup plan for when you just don't have the bandwidth to, shop and prep and cook things from scratch. And, have that backup so that you're not resorting to the super indulgent fast food.
Exactly. And another point is access to ingredients. I see so many of these, 30-day meal plans or 20-day meal plans for 14, I'll just name days.
Right.
Where of people that I really like, but it's like if you don't get exactly what they're eating, like, okay, you've got to have like quinoa or you've got to have lemongrass or whatever. And I'm going, I don't buy lemongrass. What am I going to do if I can't do lemongrass? I don't like cottage cheese.
I buy lemongrass just in case. Every week. I've never used it, but I buy it just to have it just in case it comes up. Yeah.
I like it. But really realistically, what ingredients do you have on hand? How much processing will it take to convert the raw ingredients into a meal? And this sort of ties into something we're going to talk about later. It's like, okay, well, I don't have the energy to make a salad. Like, do I have to have my own victory garden in order to be a good mother who has fresh Bibb lettuce that you pick from the garden? Or will a baby carrot count as a, salad tonight? And sometimes we get overwhelmed with I don't have all of these ingredients to make these special things, so I'm not going to do anything at all.
Absolutely.
And also with ingredients, is it something that I'm going to use once, or is it something that I can use in multiple dishes? A lot of times I want something that's like, here's how to have chicken 7 ways. Here's 8 ways to make tofu. I would much rather have a core element that I can kind of repurpose 6 ways than have you won't repeat a meal for 30 days. Like, well, what am I going to do with the rest of the 5 pounds of quinoa?
Why is that giving me so much anxiety?
Oh
the idea of not repeating a meal for 30 days.
But I think really when you're looking at all of this, we're all different. Some people are like, oh my gosh, variety. That's what I've been missing. Oh, I want, I've got all the energy in the world, or I've got no energy. Really understanding where you fit on all of these items actually is going to matter on your success.
Yeah. And, another thing to think about is, do you have access to all of the right tools that you need? Do you have the pots and pans? Do you have, whatever, gadget du jour is going on? And, we actually within the last year have gotten an Instapot and an air fryer.
Yeah.
And they've both actually, been real boons. But in my old days, I bought like a juicer and, we've got a food processor that sits basically fallow, like up in the cabinet.
A mandolin.
The mandolin, exactly. Oh my God.
Finger murder machine.
It just seemed so wonderful to be able to so easily slice our cucumbers with the mandolin.
It's got to be a better way.
Yeah. So, are we going to come in hot? It's like Catherine was saying about the ingredients. Are we going to buy all of these gadgets and then actually use them and continue to use them? I have to admit, there is a little bit of a barrier for me with the air fryer sometimes because I don't want to clean it afterwards. And so I have to just sort of, get myself psyched up to use it sometimes because I don't want to actually wash it afterwards. But once I do, I'm very happy that I did. So ask yourself, do you have these things? Are you going to use them? Or are you just coming in hot? Are you just like getting excited over a gadget? Or is it just unrealistic for you to go buy new appliances and dishes and pots and pans? Or should you try and make do with what you have?
Right. I mean, there's like the George Foreman grill.
Right.
It's like, oh, you can grill everything. The George Foreman grill.
Oh, your poor grandma fell victim to the George Foreman grill.
Oh my gosh, so many George Foreman grills sitting somewhere. But it's that, and this can be any given day, depending on the energy that Donald was talking about earlier. If you get home and just shudder at the idea of having to clean pots and pans, or I don't want to make any more dirty dishes, the kitchen is a mess, get paper plates. I know, and believe me, please, I used to, turn my nose up at people who used paper plates. But if your energy is so low that actually doing dishes is a barrier to you, there is zero shame in using paper plates. If that's one small thing that can make it easier for you to live your life, then do that. There is no shame in it.
I swear sometimes the idea of washing dishes is like kryptonite to me. Like the idea of it just, makes me want to crawl up in a ball and do nothing at all.
Well, but I think that there is that ideal self is, okay, I use all of these, saute pans and all these, fancy gadgets and whatever. But if you realize that you are too tired, or maybe you do that one night and the idea of doing it again is too much, maybe that means it's a frozen meal night. Maybe it means that you're using, just the microwave and you're not dirtying 30 pots and pans, which I have fallen victim to before, where I just get like, okay, well, I've got to make this from scratch meal and now I've got all these dishes to do. Maybe just knowing that that's a once a week thing. When I was growing up, a lot of times when I was older, Sunday was the big dinner. And everything else was just super easy, like, heat and serve things.
Yeah.
And having a once a week indulgent dinner that was a bigger meal, or even once a month, is totally fine. You can still, because you might actually really enjoy that process. Like, you might really love that home cooked meal, where you can still make that part of your life,
right?
But make it on, the middle of the month or the first of the month. We always do the big meal, or the last Sunday of the month. Make it still part of your life, but not the ideal for every day.
Yeah, for sure. Again, it's getting over that all or nothing attitude. It's like you don't have to go extreme one way or another. You can work in these home cooked meals from time to time as you have time.
So another factor, and this really plays into everything, is cost. What is a priority? I've seen these things before. It's like, I want it fresh and fast and cheap. Like,
right.
I don't know that
yeah,
always...
you can have two of the three.
Right. So what is a priority? Single serving for ease of tracking it might be more expensive, but it might be a tool towards success. We have talked to people before who said that their families hated the idea of single serving because of the environment. But here's the thing. If you buy a family size bag of potato chips because it's more cost effective, it's not cost effective if you eat half the bag and then it turns into 2 servings, which is much more expensive than the single servings.
Yeah, for sure. And there is a cost, not in hard dollars, but there's a cost to health. And really, look, I don't want to get super philosophical about this, but there's a cost to quality of life, as you go along, and you're just punishing yourself by trying to save money. You're punishing your health over and over again, and then in the long term, you end up with medical costs, or you end up with the cost of not being able to enjoy your life because you just can't move because you're stuck with all of these health problems.
And then you're going to have to live in a van down by the river.
Agreed. Ironically, trying to save money leads you to vans down by rivers.
But sometimes, like fast food is inexpensive and fast, but it can be really high in calories.
Yeah.
A way to counter that is to get the kids' meal, which is always my product tip of the week. Pow,
pow, pow.
But also Costco is inexpensive, but you have to buy things in bulk, which might lead to overeating. So really, we've talked about this before too. I buy produce and like meat and stuff at Costco, but I do not buy Nutella in bulk or peanut butter or chips, like all of those. But it's so
cost saving to buy those things.
Yeah,
until you eat them all the first day or two.
No, I'm all about spending a lot of money on food that is calorically questionable.
Yeah.
And then saving money on the high quality value foods at
Well,
Costco.
It also might be a deterrent to you or to some people to, that if you make a policy for yourself that you will only buy the high cost single serving of those indulgent foods.
Yeah.
Another thing to consider, and we did an episode very recently about boundaries, and one of the things that we said and touched on in those episodes was that when you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to another thing, and that can not only apply to boundaries but to just about anything in life. And you need to consider the time. How much time will it take to prep, cook, and clean up too? Like, will it take less time to deliver, drive through? Does this season of your life align with your ideal way of eating, or would it be more helpful to be flexible? And, so if you're saying yes to prepping and making all of these, from scratch meals and taking all of this time to do it, maybe you're saying no to other things in your life, like your exercise, your fitness. Maybe you're saying no to family quality time. You can't do all of it. There are only 24 hours in a day. Maybe you're saying no to getting enough sleep even, if you're spending all this time doing these other things. And maybe, it's time to try and, dial back on some of it so that you can focus on some of the other things.
Yeah, and we're going to give some examples later, but all of this ties into health goals also. So just replace food with health goals in all of this, because, it's like, do you want, I want to do a different workout every day. Oh,
right.
I can't afford a personal trainer, so what am I going to do? I can't do anything. I used to think that if you didn't have a weight, like an actual barbell or something, that you couldn't do exercises or doing exercises at home. We had a neighbor who said that she was doing body weight exercises. I was like, body weight? What's that? She's like, well, you just do like a push-up at home. I was like, well, that's nothing.
Only chumps do push-ups at home.
Yeah, you must be poor. But it really, I thought you had to have some personal trainer in order to get anything done.
Yeah.
Go back to old episodes. We had personal trainer. Didn't work out too well for us. So
yeah, and Catherine and I have not set foot in a gym in over 5 years, and have managed to lose weight and maintain our fitness. And, speaking of things that take time, there was this comedy sketch show called Mr. Show on HBO, and they had a fake commercial on there for this mustard anise, and it sort of
Which is actually like a thing that they have now, but this was 15, 20
years
ago.
Dijonnaise, I think, is a real thing. But it starts out with a guy trying to make a sandwich, and he's like, do you have to spread mustard and mayonnaise on your sandwich?
There's got to be a better way.
No one's got time for that.
And
There's got to be a better way.
And it was a montage of him like missing his daughter's baptism
Yeah.
and her communion and her high school graduation. And it was like, Dad, he's like, no, I got to put on the mustard and the mayonnaise.
It took too much time to spread both on the sandwich, and so they had both in the same jar to save time.
And it was funny, ha ha ha. Who doesn't have time for that? But how many times have you said, like, I can't make a salad, so I'm just not going to have anything? It's like, okay, well, you don't have to have your own garden. You can just buy a pre-made bagged salad and it's fine. And we get to that snobby thing of like, oh, well, that's trashy, or oh gosh,
Right.
like, ooh, you went to McDonald's? That's terrible. But if that's all you have the bandwidth for, it's fine. It's fine.
Absolutely.
And speaking of which, it goes back into that quality. Do you expect everything to be organic and non-GMO and fresh from the farmer's market? Or are you okay with adding in some packaged frozen food? I'm a big fan of the semi-homemade meal. I used to think that I had to make everything from scratch. And then on the Food Network, there was a show called Semi-Homemade. The woman went kind of out of her way for elaborate whatever, but she would be like, oh, buy this rotisserie chicken from the store and then pair it with homemade vegetables. And it takes out half of the work. And sure, in an ideal world, I would make everything from scratch.
Right.
But when you think about your actual time, your decision fatigue, energy expenditure, all these different things, you realize that it can be malleable. And that, again, can change from week to week and looking at your season. There are some weeks when we don't have anything going on and we can be a little bit more creative or have a little bit more variety. And then there are times, especially with my depression and anxiety and our daughter going back to high school, where I just might not have the energy or the time that I would like to have the most, beautiful quality everything in the world. And it's okay to still be on a plan, but have a little bit of flexibility there.
And, I've mentioned this on the show before. I love fresh pineapple and fresh cauliflower, but do I have the time or the energy to buy a fresh head of cauliflower and chop it and wash it?
No.
I do not. Maybe that's all in my head, but I feel like I do not. Do I have the time or the energy to buy a fresh pineapple and watch another YouTube video about how to cut it, which I've done a few times?
I'm not going to name names, but there was someone in Wolt Place who said that they bought prepackaged pineapple like we had suggested, and their mother literally said, wow, you buy the prepackaged pineapple? A good mother would buy a fresh pineapple to show their kids how to go from a raw ingredient to a cooked, to a perfectly chopped ingredient. Can you imagine if we did that with everything? Oh, you don't churn your own butter?
Right.
Like, ooh, what kind of a garbage parent are you?
You buy pre-made butter from the store? Oh, man. Oh, you buy milk that's already been pasteurized.
You don't have
in
your
a
own
jug?
cow?
Yeah, you don't have your own cow. It's
you don't,
where does it stop?
You don't make your own fabric for your own clothing. We can say ha 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 to single things like that. But if you think about it, you didn't make your own car, you didn't build your own home. Oh, you didn't, mill your own wheat. It sounds silly, but I guarantee every single one of us looks down our nose at someone for some pre-made thing or some, cheap thing. But we think that our choices are the most virtuous,
right,
and the most perfect and the most sustainable and whatever. But then we get upset when someone else does it a different way. And we think oh, you're a garbage person because you brought an Uncrustable. I'm like, please, kid, would you just eat an Uncrustable right now? Because I don't know what else to feed you. And that is totally fine.
Yeah, I've long ago come to terms with it. I decided many years ago after seeing,
not to step on anyone's shadow. Or no, that's a Whitney Houston song. Sorry. I'll stop talking.
Exactly. Never to walk in anyone's shadow. Yes, if we're being accurate here. No, I decided that I was not, now I can't get that song out of my head. I decided that, after seeing cousins and uncles who just had cars up on blocks all the time, that I was never going to change my own oil. I just decided I'm going to remain willfully ignorant, just hand my wallet over to the car mechanic, and I could not go down that road of trying to do that. And so I have also done the same thing with chopping pineapple and cauliflower. And I just am, I'm almost at a point where if I didn't do that, then I just wouldn't have fresh fruit and vegetables.
Yeah.
And look, I know some people out there might be rolling their eyes and thinking I'm lazy, but I have to make a choice sometimes. And sometimes the prepackaged, gets me to my goal, whereas doing nothing wouldn't.
Right. And, and that is such a huge part of it, deciding what is a priority. Because if everything is a priority, nothing is a priority. If you've got to have everything homemade, perfectly balanced, total control over it that everyone loves, you're going to lose out somewhere. And we have to decide day by day what our priorities are and what we're ready for, and to let go of the judgment of other people. And there are still people who are like, you're going to eat all that? Like,
right.
No one could eat a
my
whole
God.
salad.
Drives me crazy.
Who is the arbiter of
That's
the
a real big salad, Don.
But it's like, I call it the Goldilocks effect of like, there's a person out there who's going to be the arbiter of the perfect portion size, the perfect calories, the perfect freshness. Like, oh, a good parent would do this, a good grown-up would do that. And once we let go and realize that everybody has their own barometer of perfection and nobody's right. You just have to do, or you have the opportunity to do what is right for you. I've talked about it too. I'm 47 years old now. When's the point where I'm suddenly going to be the person who is going to like live their own life? Like
87.
87?
Yeah, I've decided it's 87. Yeah, no, you need to do it now. I mean, like, you're a grown woman, I'm a grown man. Like, if we can't, advocate for ourselves at this point, when is it going to happen?
For sure.
So the next thing, and we're moving into the final stages of this to think about, is duration of satisfaction. Is what you're going to eat filling, or is it going to prompt more snackiness?
Yeah.
And this has really been a trial and error for me. Is this the kind of food that's going to satisfy me for a while, or am I going to be hungry again in 5 minutes? And I have found, for me personally, that if I stick to very high protein items or fruit, which I know is not high protein, earlier in the day, it allows me to remain less hungry. And then I save my kind of triggery, snacky foods for a little later in the day. It works best for me. If I eat things like, cottage cheese, yogurt, veggie burgers, veggie sausages, that kind of thing, things that are really high protein, that really keeps me filled up and satisfied longer than when I start the day with like chips or with something, sugary, that really makes me just want to keep eating, that sort of thing.
Yeah, being a student of the way food makes you feel really does matter, because I know even after losing all of this weight, I know there's somebody out there who's like, well, no, you can eat whatever you want. I cannot. Or, you know what? I can, but I pay the consequences for that. I have come to the final conclusion, we've talked about this before, that 3 strikes you're out rule.
Yeah.
Which was
that's a good one.
Yeah. Baseball thing of like, if you fail 3 times, that means that maybe it's a no-go. I simply cannot have protein bars, which are actually candy bars, but they say protein. It's spelled incorrectly.
Right.
For me, it just makes me want to have 2 or 3 of them. Oh, it's so much protein.
I eat them as dessert. Like, that's how, desserty they are.
And I can't even do that. Donald has food in the house that he can moderate, and I can't. And knowing that about myself, it takes away that decision fatigue. Yeah. I just don't eat them in the house, and it takes that away. It is not a food that I can moderate at this point. And it's been years. And every time I go, well, maybe I'm at the point where now I can do it. I can't do it.
Yeah.
And so they're just not a factor in my plan. Or you can do the thing that we've talked about before of pairing an indulgence with a limited thing. So getting my hair cut, I get a bagel. You could switch that out. And every time you get an oil change, then you have a single protein bar in public, not in your house. You don't buy them in bulk at Costco. You just get it all done. I have to know myself. I have the opportunity to understand how food affects me.
Yeah, we call it pairing is caring.
Pairing is caring.
And we did an episode called that, which I will link to in the show notes.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't even suggest it, so this is on you. I wasn't going to do it at all. So as we're kind of finishing up here, I wanted to give 3 examples of the sort of big extremes. We used to think about that all or nothing, that perfection, or taking out fast food. When you taking out fast food, like a human.
A human taking out fast food.
So these might be extreme, but there are times, depending on our energy, the season that we're in, our financial situation, our stress levels, that we might be able to do any number of these options. And again, it might be extreme, but think about where you are on the spectrum right now based on, all of the different factors we've discussed. So let's say a salad. What does a salad mean to you, Donald? You don't actually have to answer that. Just keep thinking about it. This episode's gone on too long. So we're going from one extreme to the other. Think about that evolution of man situation. Right now we're at the highest level, peak performance. Everything in your life is going perfectly. Maybe for a salad, you're the kind of person who grows your own vegetables, Donald. You have your own garden that you tend to perfectly. Everything is organic and homemade, and it's all wonderful.
That does not sound like me, but sure. Let's do it.
But, there's somebody out there right now who's like, of course, that's the only way you have a salad.
Absolutely.
And then there's, maybe the farmer's market. I used to think that was the ideal. Go to the farmer's market, buy so much you can't even get it in your fridge.
Right.
And then it all goes bad, which is what we used to do.
We did that over and over again without learning a lesson.
You get a CSA box. I don't know what CSA stands for, but it's a box of vegetables that shows up. Half of it, you don't know what they are.
Customer Service Association box full of vegetables.
Sure. But we got a CSA box for a while.
Yeah.
And it was just too many things. I didn't know what to do with it all. It ended up going bad. But maybe that's the way you get in your vegetables. Super duper for you. Below that, you buy raw ingredients at the grocery store.
Right.
Super duper if that works. Everything you wash it. Nothing comes in a bag.
Many things are super duper right now.
Many things are super duper. Sorry, these are my expletives or adjectives. I don't know right now. But then if that seems too much, you get bagged. You get pre-chopped. You get pre-packaged. There is zero shame in that. I do that all the time. There are times I bought lettuce. Donald, I'm going to out myself here. I bought lettuce going fallow in the crisper, not so crisp. And Donald said, "Hey, Catherine Weigel, noticing the lettuce that's going bad. Would you consider buying bagged lettuce?" I did not appreciate his insight on my letting the vegetables. Because just having the vegetables seems like I'm making progress.
Yeah,
having them in the house. He goes, "Why don't you buy something bagged?" Mind your own business, I said to him. But it's also very true. Maybe getting bagged is the way to go.
I don't think of myself as a lazy person, but then I think about the idea of chopping my own lettuce and washing it. And, I would rather just curl up in a ball on the floor and do nothing.
Yeah. So, and if bagged seems like too much, the step down from that is they sell handy little bowls at the grocery store with, you got your Caesar salads.
Oh, yeah.
You got your, Asian-inspired salads. You can just buy it in a bowl, ready to go,
all the
pre-packaged.
grocery stores around us, it's not just Whole Foods and Trader Joe's anymore. They all have, pre-made, salads that are reasonable calories.
And the calorie counts are already on them.
Yeah.
You don't have to measure anything. You can just do that. So that is also very helpful. Or, your salad bars. That's a thing that people do. Put it all together. And then when that fails... I'm punctuating this by saying it slowly. Donald is just looking at me. You know what? Maybe the role of salad is just putting jarred salsa on something you're eating.
Right.
Maybe it's a single baby carrot and that counts. I definitely do that with our daughter. Sometimes, a salad is actually a salad. Sometimes the role of salad is just, 2 sliced cucumber slivers and that's it. 2 cherry tomatoes.
I snack on pre-washed, cleaned baby carrots and cherry tomatoes all the time, almost every day. And I call it a salad in my head. In my heart, it's a salad.
Yeah, if ketchup is a vegetable, so is a carrot.
That's right.
But that can change based on my energy level for a day, for a week. There are times when the jarred, mason jar salad, that's going to happen. And when that does, that is a special day. That is an amazing day, but that is the ideal. That is not a typical day. So you can have this whole spectrum for all of it. So I'm going to go through more quickly because, we can do yucks and asides all the time.
Yeah.
So dinner, here's dinner from the ideal to the basic. A from-scratch meal covering every single food group. Next down is semi-homemade. Again, the rotisserie chicken with maybe some bagged lettuce or bagged cauliflower.
Yeah.
Below that is everything just from the hot bar at the grocery store. Maybe you just get the pre-made everything, and that's okay. Below that is getting takeout. You can find so many different restaurants have their calories on the menu. Just pick some things that are calorie friendly, fit into your plan, count it that way. And below that is getting a frozen meal. There are so many ways that you can just get a Stouffer's, like that's just a normal brand. Get a Stouffer's frozen lasagna, pair that with a bagged salad, you got a meal. What people end up doing, which I've seen before, is if I can't make a from scratch meal, I'm just going to get fast food takeout.
Yeah.
But you can get a frozen meal that isn't even a diet lean cuisine. You can get a frozen meal and have that. And it's going to be, for sure, 500 calories. That's so many calories. But that's less than getting a 1,600 calorie fast food, supersize.
And maybe there are fast food options to where you can, fit it into your calories, fit it into your diet plan, whatever it is, but you have to really be disciplined to do that.
Yeah.
Like, I have this terrible problem of, being like, oh, I could get a reasonable fast food meal, and then I'm adding and adding and adding. So you have to know yourself and know whether you can really just, stick with like the kids meal or something.
Right. So below the frozen meal, and then you can also go with the diet frozen meal or whatever, is like maybe a meal, which I actually did recently, which was a revelation. We had cereal for dinner a while ago.
Yeah.
Our daughter could not have been more delighted. It was a party.
Yeah.
And getting out of that mindset of this is what dinner is, why are you trying to make the most complicated decision of the day at the time in which you're the most exhausted?
Right.
You can do a flip-a-doodle. That's what I just called it, a flip-a-doodle, everybody.
Wow, a flip-a-doodle.
Watch my language. But actually doing breakfast for dinner. Hey, guess what? You could have scrambled eggs for dinner and maybe have a more complicated breakfast that is harder to make. I am exhausted by 5 o'clock. And sometimes just knowing that, sure, you're not going to have cereal for dinner every night, but you're still a good person. You're still a valuable member of society if you're making dinner super easy for yourself. And again, Monday, you could have all the energy in the world. By Friday, you're exhausted. Make it easy on yourself and just have cereal for dinner, or make that the night that you get the single slice of Costco pizza. It doesn't have to be perfect every single night.
Absolutely not.
And finally, we touched on this earlier in the episode. Think about it in terms of your workout or fitness goals. In a perfect world, sure, you would have a personal trainer that had you kayaking on the open sea.
Right.
And, doing, gymnastics or whatever. But realistically, maybe that doesn't work out. Maybe you get a personal...
All of those personal trainers who use kayaking as a tool.
No, but I remember looking in People magazine the fitness levels of the stars.
Yeah.
And be like, well, we do kickboxing on Monday, and then on Tuesday we run through the Saharan desert, and then on Wednesdays we do jump rope or whatever. And it's not, I used to think whoa, if I was just, Cheryl Teague, then I could, I don't know if Cheryl Teague does anything, but, I used to think that, oh, great, Madonna has this varied program that she does every day, must be nice. If I can't do that, then I'm going to do nothing. I don't have the time to go, running on the beach every day. I'm in our house. I don't have any more time.
Yeah,
so
for
guess
sure.
what? Below that, you could get a personal trainer once a week. You could go to the gym. You could take gym classes down from there. If the gym is too much, it's too far away, it's too expensive, I don't have the time for it, you can do workout videos at home. You can buy, weights for your own house, a shake weight, a thigh mass or whatever, you could have that in your house. Below that, you can just do body weight resistance. I had plenty of weight and plenty of resistance to just do it on my own self. I used to laugh at people, or, I've talked about it before, your sister coming and just doing stretching in our living room. That's not going to do anything. And guess what is not going to do anything? Sitting on the couch, heckling, pointing at people and laughing is definitely not burning as many calories as just doing anything.
Yeah, it ties right back to that all or nothing attitude.
Right. And getting into that non-exercise activity thermogenesis, the just daily walking around, sneaking in more steps, keeping your body moving every day, that also matters. And below that, again, a single push-up, a single walk, to the mailbox and back twice a day. Well, that's 2 singles. That single push-up that you do on the counter if you can't do a full push-up.
Sometimes 2 singles don't make a double.
But there is a wide spectrum. And when we say, well, I can't do my half-hour workout, so I'm not going to do anything. Okay, can you do a single push-up? Yeah, but this isn't going to do anything. In the time you just complained about it, you could have already done it and then said that you got something in.
Yeah, and, I know we're trying to wrap this up at this point, but this happened to me not that that long ago. Catherine and I are not immune to the all or nothing attitude. At the beginning, early times of the pandemic, I was doing a very, for me at least, extensive workout where I was doing weightlifting and some, body weight training. And then when I went back to work in the middle of 2020, I basically stopped doing any of it, because I sort of got it into my head if I couldn't do my full routine. And it's only been within the last couple of months or maybe month and a half that I, really thought to myself, I could do 2 push-ups and a 15-second plank. Like, I can do that much. And, now I'm up to 12 push-ups and a minute and 15 plank. And it really feels great to be doing something. And I really can feel and see the difference in myself just from doing that. I'm doing no other strength training. I'm still getting my steps and my thermogenesis, my non-exercise activity thermogenesis, my NEAT. But it really does make a difference just doing those couple of things. And so it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And, I have to remind myself of that all the time too.
Yeah. And, as we sort of finish this up, we can get really caught up in worrying about the perception of what we're doing, what other people will think about the size of our salads, whether we prepare things, whether we buy things, from scratch or pre-bagged. We can worry about what we see on Instagram and the perfect acai bowls or whatever. Sorry, I don't know where I was going with that. We can see what we perceive as the perfect way to do something and the manicured lives that people show on the internet. And if we're not doing it like them, then we're garbage people and, we might as well not do anything. And the real part of permanent weight loss and permanent mindset change is realizing that it does not matter what anyone else is doing and focusing on yourself, staying in your own lane, following your own path and finding something that actually works for you is the best way to fulfill your life. We don't have to wait for this perfect plan or a 30-day fix or see what some fitness, enthusiast, inspiration person is doing on the internet to follow in their footsteps. Real freedom comes from adapting to your own circumstances, that realizing that no matter what, there is a spectrum of choices that we have each and every day that can help us fulfill our long-term health goals. When we wait for the next season to start, for school to start, for the holidays to be over, for tax season to be over, for, the roof to be redone on the house, when we keep pushing that perfect down the line, suddenly we wake up and it's been a year and we could have been making progress instead of waiting for that perfect moment. So we are asking you today to take into consideration all of the excuses and the limitations and the energy levels that you have and start focusing on a plan that is actually going to work for you. I didn't think about all this high level stuff when I started out 5 years ago. So you're getting the benefit of 5 years of introspection. At first, all I did was count calories. I didn't think about all the stuff, but I knew that I could just make it easy to make it easy for myself. And that just started with doing the work every day and not waiting for perfect. And we are asking you to not wait for perfect and just get on the road, start walking, start getting it done.
Well, thank you very much for listening and waiting for this perfect episode of We Only Look Thin. We do, I know I say this at the end of every episode, but it's because it's true. We really deeply appreciate every single one of you for listening. We are grateful for anybody wanting to hear what we have to say, and thank you so much. If you would like to listen to more of our episodes, they are all available wherever you found this podcast and also on our website, weonlylookthin.com. And, something I don't usually mention is you can actually search. We have a search bar on there. You can search for different topics if there's something that you're looking for that maybe you think we haven't talked about or you want a refresher on, or maybe there's a particular thing that you want to know. Did they do an episode on blank? You can search and look for it. And if there's an episode that we haven't done something about that you want to talk about, you can always email us to weonlylookthin@gmail.com.
Yeah, it might take a little while for us to get back to you. We've got lots of things going on trying to prioritize, but hopefully we will get back to you. But going back to the website, if you are on that website, you can click on Join Our Support Group.
Oh, yeah, please do that. Please stay on the website. Don't email us. click on join our support group. I skipped over that.
Oh, that's fine. But we have a support group called Wolt Place. We Only Look Thin Place. It's based on Facebook. It's an accountability and support group for women. It is not a weight loss plan, but it is a place for support and inspiration. And it's a safe, quiet corner of the internet away from prying eyes. I know I've said this before, but my 97-year-old grandmother is on Facebook.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of eyes watching what I do on Facebook, but Wolt Place is private. So find out more about that by going to our website. We have 2 subscription options, a monthly option with a 3-day complimentary trial and a 3-month subscription with a 7-day complimentary trial to see if Wolt Place is right for you.
And you can interact directly with Catherine Weigel at Wolt Place. If you want some less direct interaction with us, you can also find us on social media, as the kids call it, at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at We Only Look Thin.
And if you would like to throw a little love our way, head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and a review. It helps people find us when they're doing searches for inspirational podcasts like ours. And it also boosts our mood. So thank you to everyone who has left us a rating and a review. We truly appreciate it worldwide.
Another thing you can do for us, if you're saying to yourselves, Catherine and Donald have done so much for me over their microphones. What can I do for them? You could tell somebody else about our show.
Sharing is caring.
Yes, indeed. If you know somebody who might like it, you can suggest it. You can say, I heard on this podcast some wonderful advice involving XYZ, and try and drive them our way. We would really be grateful and appreciate it. So the next time you're trying to decide whether you should do a flip-a-doodle for dinner or act like a normal human taking out food, just remember
Please
that
don't use my
Catherine
words
and I
against
are
me.
an inspiration. The information that you hear on this podcast is for informational purposes only. The hosts are not medical professionals. You should always consult with your doctor, nurse, or other certified health professional before beginning any diet or fitness program.